Thanks, everyone, for being here. I would like to take a glance into the future together with you. But before we do that, let's just remember very briefly where we got started. The world's first mobile bank was not founded in the United States or Europe, but it was founded in Kenya in 2007. And I remember when I traveled just a few years later into Kenya and Uganda, I could see people in very remote villages where people didn't even have electric outlets, where they could transfer money via SMS from their Nokia phones to their family members in other villages or cities. And I asked myself, how come that people in these really remote villages can do that, and we in Germany and Europe cannot? A few years later, I joined the leadership team of, back then, a tiny fintech called N26, which later on became one of the most successful digital banks in Europe. But for me, the real inspiration to disrupt banking in Europe actually started in East Africa. Today, there are about 2.2 billion online banking users in the world. However, 40% of them live in either China, Korea, or Japan. In fact, rest of the world as a region, which essentially comprises most of Asia and Africa, is the second largest online banking region. So online banking looks very different across different markets. If you look at and looking beyond borders, in fact, opens a window into tomorrow's possibilities. So in fact, when we're thinking about how banking will look like in future, it is actually worth looking how banking looks already today in different markets, because banking today looks very different across countries. In Asia, especially in Korea and Japan, financial services and peer-to-peer, basically transferring money, is heavily dominated by super apps, like Kakao Pay on the left and WeChat Pay on the right. Essentially, one app to do everything in your financial life. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that the super app is exactly how the future of banking will look like in Europe as well. In fact, banking today already looks quite different across markets. Like this photo, I took both of these photos, one in Korea, one in Senegal, both just a few weeks ago. And I'm in a very lucky position that I'm able to travel to a lot of different markets and work or test different fintech products and mobile banking products. And what's fascinating about the right picture, taken in Senegal, in a very remote village in Senegal, in a village where there was no banking, banking branch, not even an ATM, I was actually able to withdraw money in a shoe shop. You can see the shoes in the background of this image. And I believe I withdrew about 40 euros, and it cost nothing. And this is how the shop looked like from outside. So, in fact, when you look into banking of the future, I don't just want to talk about banking in Europe, but how access to banking in general can truly change people's lives. Access to banking in Western Africa is, of course, a completely different story to access to new types of banking in Europe. In fact, even in Europe, we are now increasingly getting access to completely new banking services directly on our phone or wherever we are. Just a few years ago, it was hardly possible to basically manage your money, manage your investments directly from your phone. Nowadays, it has become complete standard. In future, you will be able to get the best mortgage deal directly from your phone. Now, you're still walking into a bank branch very often. And access to banking can truly be life-changing. And there's no market that better represents that than Brazil. Nubank is probably one of the largest and most successful digital banks in the world. Within a matter of 9 years, they managed to acquire 90 million customers. Most of them live in Brazil. And they almost single-handedly changed the fate of their country. Because while in 2011, almost half of all Brazilians did not have a bank account, this number is now down to less than 10%. And Nubank makes $8 billion in revenue with that. So providing access to the unbanked is an incredibly powerful business. So let's take that as a foundation to make 10 predictions on how the future of banking might look like. So first of all, there will be likely more than 6 billion online banking users in the world. That will give power to the unbanked. However, that will also open completely new markets for technology providers and digital banks around the world. Currently, or for a very long time, banks try to focus always on specific target audiences because they're more profitable. Imagine a world where basically every human being on the planet has access to financial services directly from their phone. Imagine what kind of market this opens up for potentially your own company. Banking will be completely seamless. It will be embedded everywhere. It will be completely normal to apply for a loan not at your bank, but directly at a shop or at any other trading platform, or potentially get your mortgage through a third-party provider. And that will open the gateways to non-banking players and dominate the banking world. In fact, it will be very common that non-banks, I'm calling non-banks essentially financial service providers that do not have a full banking license, that they will offer more and more banking services that nowadays are run by banks. What's interesting is that this means this will also trigger new types of regulation. New types of regulation are required because, of course, if banking moves to non-banking players, authorities have interest in regulating those players as well. And you actually can see that already now with payment providers getting stricter and stricter regulated. I predict that this will trigger new types of licenses as well. You can call them bank licenses light. There may be some fintech licenses. And in fact, Brazil is here a great example. Brazil has a so-called fintech license, which enables a lot of different banking services, but isn't a full banking license. You will see that this might become the standard in future. Bank branches will completely disappear. May I ask, who of you has been to a bank branch in the past 12 months? Please raise your hand. Who of you have been in the past 6 months? Still quite a few, Many of them, I guess, many of you went because of your business. Corporate banking nowadays is still heavily focused on branches. In future, bank branches will likely disappear to the extent that only very few bank branches will remain in every city, and they will more look like flagship stores rather than nowadays typical bank branches. Instead of having 30 bank branches in one city, a bank might have only one, and that might look like that. Compliance and customer service will be completely disrupted by AI. Most bank back-office processes will be automated. They will completely run without any human interaction. In fact, already today, money laundering is so sophisticated that the compliance teams essentially are so overwhelmed to handle any of them that they need to completely shift more and more to technology. And nowadays, technology is enabling the teams to become better. It's very likely that at some point, the criminals are becoming so sophisticated that you actually need to fight them purely with technology. And customer service, it can be quite easily expected that the first and second line of customer service will be completely driven by AI as well. This might sound scary for a few of you, but online presence might actually co-determine your credit score. And the internet doesn't forget. This might sound like a dystopian future, but the truth is, as a bank, you have every interest in knowing your customer as well as possible. And it's completely normal to use any information available. Banking will be hyper-personalized. And it is very likely that any bank will follow. Personalization will be so modular that even the most regional and traditional banks will be able to offer personalized banking. However, the quality will differ massively. Stocks and bonds will likely be fully tokenized. That means that you can transfer stocks or bonds to another platform quite easily. In fact, you might even be able to keep it on a cold wallet. And in fact, the same might happen with your ID. That will completely disrupt how KYC is being done in banking, because suddenly your KYC information is portable. You might be able to open a new bank account with one click rather than a lengthy process that might take a day. Cryptocurrencies will become completely mainstream. Basically, your parents and grandparents might buy them. However, they will be strictly regulated by central banks. So the idea of having a completely decentralized cryptocurrency trading system is very unlikely to be materializing. Why? Well, while the cryptocurrencies itself can't be controlled completely, the exchanges through which most people buy, sell, and hold their coins can, and they will. Because central banks have absolutely zero interest in cryptocurrencies becoming completely mainstream without them having control over them. And it will be particularly interesting for certain emerging markets where actually the use case is a massive one. Bank cards will disappear. They will be first substituted by mobile wallets. But in fact, I expect that only to be an interim step. I expect at the end of the day, biometrics being the actual gateway to your account. Which one is to be seen? But it's very likely that the plastic card has an expiration date. And last but not least, I believe one of the top 10 retail banks will actually be a big tech company that we know today. Which one? Again, is to be seen. But I expect not only will they enter retail banking, but I believe that even this one of the most core businesses of retail banks nowadays will at some point be influenced by big tech companies. And that's the mortgage business. So to summarize, it's very likely that the technological change in banking will accelerate even further. It will be faster and faster, and it will influence all our lives. The impact on people will be massive. A lot of it very positively. And I believe a lot of people here in the room will play a massive role in influencing and shaping the future of banking. And that's why I'm very excited for the next decade to come. Thank you.